Welcome to the world of stand-up. You just put your emblem away. Mm-hmm. You said it was a combination of a pentagram and the Star of David.
It's where they get that from.
Okay.
It's where both get it from.
Okay.
Because it doesn't mean good or bad either way.
Right.
It's where the Egyptians got
This
it
is some
from.
Robert Langdon shit right here, dude. This
Oh,
is,
for sure.
Yeah.
So I might as well just leave it out and we'll just
Leave
have
it
a
out,
conversation.
dude. Yeah. We know you're not, worshiping the devil. I mean, not on.
I mean, I like
not
the hell
on
out of the
Fridays
guy.
anyway.
He's pretty cool.
We were talking about that. Like, what an interesting character of folklore, you know?
Yeah.
We're supposed to be scared of this guy when he knows exactly how to get you to do what you want. What a great marketer, you know?
Yeah. Let's have this conversation.
Okay, let's do it.
We'll start whenever you're ready.
We're
just
rolling right now, dude. Yeah, we're
okay.
going.
Okay, cool. So the Satan conversation.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, man. This guy. So I grew up Mormon, right?
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
So I'm LDS, Latter-day Saint. Yeah. And every, fourth Sunday, they have fast and testimony meeting where people bear their testimonies and they talk.
Yeah.
And there was one woman in particular that was like, I got asked to speak and I didn't know what it was about. And the bishop just said, hey, you'll figure it out. So she said, all week I've been tested. Every day, Satan has tested me. He's like, are you willing? Are you responsible? Are you willing? Are you capable of standing in front of a congregation and worthy of giving this talk? And she's like, I didn't know that I was. Like, I fought this and I went down the hole. And she goes this whole thing and she goes, finally, God touched me. And in that moment, I knew what I was talking about, or I knew what I was going to deliver. I knew that I was worthy of this.
Okay.
And my mind's going, who did all the work? Was it the God guy, or was it what you called Satan, who
Satan's
just
like
questioned you?
Dude, Satan's like the fluffer. Yeah. You got him ready, dude.
Yeah.
And then God was like, I'm just going to give you a little tippity tap here.
Yeah.
I'm worthy. Dude, he did all the dirty work, man.
Yeah, man. Imagine all of the hard struggles that you've been through in your life for a minute. And what they've done for you, where you're like, why am I just punished? Satan and these terrible things and these thoughts and these demons are after me. But once you get through them and you're like, that was just me on a bad day.
Yeah.
And you move forward, you just expand.
Dude, it brings up a thought. I've had this conversation many times with many different people that have many different backgrounds in religion and spirituality. And I love the idea of talking about this with you. Which is it, in your opinion? Because I don't know. I don't know if, the whole idea of the concept of evil, which is attributed to Satan, is really like a force, like a power, like there's an evil sort of mist or energy, or if it's like light, for example, like darkness isn't a force, it's an absence of light.
Sure.
And so when you look at it from a spiritual standpoint, is evil just an absence of understanding? Is evil actually just an undeveloped expression of righteousness? It's just misguided because it's incomplete? Or is it like it's like gravity? It's like there's a force, like an evil that can, like a pull. Sure. I don't know the answer to that, and it's curious to me.
It was a good question. Years ago, I went down the rabbit hole. I moved, sold all the stuff. I moved to the jungle, and then I studied in hidden and underground
That's not
temples
hyperbole.
in
You
Italy.
actually did this. Like, you went to Mexico.
I lived there for 3 years. I got rid of everything. Like every attachment, all these really cool story around this piece. But I'm going, I want to learn. And I got tired of learning from people who wrote something this century. Because it's just somebody's opinion about what somebody wrote way back when.
It's a big circle jerk, really.
So just started studying all the religions, but I'd only get original texts. So anything over like 300 years, I'm in it. Like, I would read it and just go down this rabbit hole to find these answers. So the easiest way I can explain it this way, my understanding. On the light, you have a light switch with a dim switch, right?
Right.
And you push the frequency up and the light goes bright.
Right.
You push the frequency low and the light goes dark. So it's not different. It's just a different frequency. Evil is just at a lower pace.
So it's undeveloped. It's a lower frequency of righteousness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So neither one of those, but the piece is it's not evil or righteousness. It's just an energy, and you choose where you want to express that.
Right.
It's your choice.
That's a beautiful answer because it makes sense in a lot of ways. I've never understood how, like, if evil is or was a force, well, how? What's the source of the energy that causes the emanation of this, you know, and no theologian or religious person could give you an answer. It's like, well, it's just, you know, from Satan. Like, it's because of his influence. I'm like, okay, so he then is the source, and is it embodied through something, or is it not? Like, where's home base, you know?
Yeah.
And nobody can answer you, but yet it makes more sense like that like it's an intensity level. I remember, you know, if you look at, for example, like how children behave. Mm-hmm. I've seen kids do some fucking nasty shit to each other.
Sure.
They don't know what they're doing.
Sure.
Are they evil, or is it just that they're undeveloped? It would make sense that they're undeveloped. They don't know what they're doing, and there's a certain level of ignorance associated with their action, and that then in a way excuses them. When you get into, it gets kind of be hairy when you start looking at like really, truly kind of evil things, if you will, like, you know, sex trafficking or abuse or like murder or things like that. It's like, well, at what point does it cross over and become something? It's like, well, what if it doesn't? What if it's just that is a really magnified example of their undeveloped nature of understanding what righteousness is,
Sure.
or true
Or their
light.
choice. It might.
Right.
There's a possibility it's underdeveloped, and there's a possibility they just choose it. Like, you know, really good people that have gone through tough times and
Right.
like lied, cheat, stole, like did all of these things. They were a developed person
Right.
that fell into this lower vibration, this lower frequency, if you will, and just decided to stay there because they didn't know how to get out, or they didn't get it out of their head, or they just enjoyed being really angry and then complained about
I
it.
love that you say that, dude, because people do find joy in base emotions. Mm-hmm. They support their own addictions because they think that it's a part of their identity in a weird way. It's like, no, that's just as much of a distraction for you as pornography or drugs would be.
Yeah.
It's a cocktail of emotional drugs is what you're tapping into with your little sorry that you've got for yourself there.
Yeah.
Really crazy, dude.
Yeah,
Wow.
especially if somebody gets addicted to other people's responses to their anger.
Yeah.
Like if I get really angry with you and then you back down and then I come back to you with a little light and say, "Oh, I'm really sorry," and you give in, that's just a drug feeding into it. They're like, "Oh, I know how to get a response out of you. I just need to drop into this vibration, be extremely angry, and I can get you to do whatever I want." It's a drug.
Dude, human relationships are fascinating, aren't they?
Yeah, the human relationship in the mind was crazy.
Yeah. Well, the one we have with ourselves.
Yeah, 100%.
Starting there, you know?
100%.
And this sort of like, you know, manifestation of relationships outside of ourselves. I've done a lot of air quotes today. I think I'm going to stop. I'm not going to do any more air quotes as a part of our conversation. By the way, Greg W. Anderson, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you.
For
Thank
me, welcome back, because you were on my old show,
Yeah.
Rules of Success, back when you were peddling The Selfish Divorce, your book.
Absolutely.
How many books have you written, dude?
Well, I published one. I've written 3. There's
Okay.
2 that are just sitting on my drive going, I'm just not ready for them yet.
Okay.
They just don't feel like it, like I completed it. And then I was like, wow.
Dude, you're such an interesting person to me, because you're clearly, like, you're associated with Lions Not Sheep with their NFT project.
Yeah.
You're also associated with, like, the development of the new app that's going to be there. Like, you're such a curious person to me. Like, I'd fucking not be surprised at all if you, like, came out with, like, a Texas Hold'em book. It's like,
Sure.
Greg Anderson is going to teach you how to play. Well, of course he would. Why not?
Yeah.
He's going to teach you how to get in centered with yourself, get rid of your tells. He's going to show you how to
Yeah.
read the river and the plop. Like,
Yeah, you're speaking my language. It doesn't matter what topic. It's the same thing. It's the same system that I follow.
yeah, that's true, dude. There's so much, like, similarity in just how to overcome and succeed, no matter what it is. That's great, man.
Yeah.
So what's been your passion lately that you've been a part of?
Well, you mentioned Lions Not Sheep. About, you know, Sean Whalen and I had been business partners and friends on and off for like 16 years. And we did some work together when Lions Not Sheep was first launched. And then we separated. There just wasn't enough momentum at that moment. And I was just getting ready to leave, right? I was going to take my sabbatical from,
You're gonna head down to
Everything.
Machu Picchu or wherever it was.
yeah, it was pretty nuts.
You're gonna go see the Lamanite ruins, I guess is what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. There's actually 27 different places that I went and studied while I was down there.
Okay.
And I'd go find a family, and I just learned from them around something that had to do with a pyramid complex, whether it was Earth or still under Earth, right? And I'd just go learn from them. And so a lot of their stuff was Lamanite, some, but they taught me how a civilization can run for 3,000 years, which is, I don't know, look, man, we're a couple hundred years into this, and it's about to explode.
Yeah.
So-
do you think a part of that, what you learned with a civilization being able to last that long, has to do with underdeveloped ways of communication? in mass, where like how it was all scrolls and writing and
Sure.
come to the thing, and there was a lot more community.
Sure.
And it wasn't like, oh, Twitter, this guy said what? Like,
Yeah, there wasn't any of that.
yeah.
The other part about it is currently, like the humans, we develop by this thing underneath our eye called a mirror neuron, and it lets me see what you're going through, and I can learn. If you're hammering a nail, I can learn how to hammer by watching you. I don't have to do it, right? If you're an abusive father, a child is learning how to be an abusive father by this mirror neuron and studying it, and also by the words that we hear, right? And so right now we have data coming from us from the moment that we're born in lots of different ways. And for the most part, humans don't understand that, you know, those voices in your head that drive you crazy? They're not really
Never
yours.
had them.
Okay.
Just kidding.
That good voice, bad
I've got
voice.
a tabernacle choir up there, buddy. Like they're singing harmony. It's awesome. It's so
All
fun.
of them are somebody in your past told you something and you go, oh, that's what that means. And so as we learn, we go to school and they say, here's a textbook on how to do math. So in the future, you can revert back to what you learned in school to find the answer, right? So that means that everything that you agreed when you grew up and learned, that's now your belief system. Yeah. And so when you come up, you butt up against that and you hear your mom or an uncle or an old business partner, an old friend or high school coach or whatever that is, you start to hear that it's their thoughts, their words, and you're just going back into the Rolodex. Well, back in the day, they didn't do that. Like the highest amount of, call it awakening. You're an ascended master, you're a guru. The way that you get there is by having no thoughts. It's not by overpowering bad thoughts with good thoughts. It's by learning how to control the mind enough so that there's just nothing.
Is that possible? To have no thoughts.
No thoughts. It's tough. But
See,
it's possible.
I've heard that conceptually, and I've been practicing meditation in some form for 2 decades.
Yeah.
I've never dived in enough to where I can even remotely say that I've had more than just a couple seconds of just no thought.
Yeah.
It's always like some sort of thing like where it feels like this dance, like, okay, I'm going to focus on my breath so the thoughts shut up, and then I do that, but I'm still focusing on something, and there's still a focal point there, and I feel this stuff happen. It's odd, but to have no thoughts, dude, like without drugs.
Yeah, for sure. There's a process. Personally, I called this stalking shadows. It was
Ducking shadows?
stalking.
Stalking shadows. Okay.
Right?
So hold on. STALK or STOCK?
The first
Stalk
like
or
stalk, like I'm stalking my
Got
prey.
it. Got it. Okay.
Right? And basically what it means is you drop into meditation and you have that thought and you track back where you got it from. Where was the inception of that thought? Like all the way back. Who gave it to you? What was the scenario around it? Was it good? Was it bad? And in that moment, once you stalk the inception, since your memories only live in your mind, you have an opportunity there to either change it, release it. You can't delete thoughts, but you can go, oh man, that was from when I was 7. Do you think that I actually have the best perspective of what that situation was at 7? Probably not. Well, maybe it's this. Like maybe I'm going to take something that I remember being a negative and I'm just going to shift the words that I remember, because it's just that easy to change your memory. It's just that easy for time travel. You just go back to the moment, tweak it.
Are you familiar with something called timeline therapy?
I'm not, but it's going to sound very similar just from the words.
Okay, so, and I've talked about it openly on this podcast. I invested heavily in this self-development group called Upgrade. Okay. And it's ran by a guy named William Lamb, and he is one of like 20 people in the world that has this level of mastery when it comes to neuro-linguistic programming and helping you to, master your subconscious, basically. And he has, what I'm hearing from you as you describe this, it sounds like a real parallel track to timeline therapy. Timeline therapy is basically like through hypnosis, you can go back and relive certain aspects of your development relative to emotional well-being and then root out the key emotion that was implanted during that moment, and then go through different stages in your life and have that no longer be affect you. And then you come out of this therapy and you literally feel like a new person.
Yeah.
Additionally, there's another thing that they do that sounds very similar to what you're saying as well. He calls it, I believe it's the resolution formula, where, as an example, it's more of like a personal self-soothing, self-care exercise, if you will. So let's say that you're having a moment where you're really struggling with something in your life. You're at full resistance to it. You're irritated. You're triggered, what have you. Well, the resolution formula would have you ask yourself, like, okay, so what am I experiencing in this moment? Like, you have to quantify what the emotions are of the moment.
Yeah.
In totality, like you're being comprehensive and saying, like, well, I'm feeling this over here. I'm feeling this over here. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling jealous. I'm feeling overlooked. I'm feeling all these things. And then the second part of it is you ask yourself, well, when did I start to believe that that's the case?
Right.
And it allows you to start to go back and source original experiences that kind of programmed you, if you will, in those moments to now have a new belief that is like the princess and the pea. It's like that little pea underneath the mattress, and it's all the way at the top. You're experiencing this. And then there's a few other things that you walk through after the fact that are more involved that allow you to release it and to change your belief and to release the thoughts about that. Very interesting stuff when it comes to the mind,
100%. And how did that course and how that program, what did you get out of that? What were your results?
My business has gone up more than I ever thought it would. I've increased my network. I've increased my influence, my visibility. It's affected my comedy career. It's affected my business. It's affected my level of financial result. A lot of what I've noticed in people relative to their growth and success is that, well, this is the way that it was described to me, and I'll share this here. So basically, your subconscious mind, in a very remedial sense, is it runs everything, right?
Right.
And even to the point of like energetically communicating with the world outside to manufacture and create scenarios for you to which it's communicating that you want.
Yeah.
Right? It can attract relationships in that can help a certain outcome come, good or bad.
100%.
Or supportive or non-supportive, I guess, instead of taking the morality out of it. It can attract opportunities that can make it to where you want to succeed. But the doorway into the subconscious mind is the conscious mind. And the conscious mind is, let's use a ship metaphor or a sailing metaphor. The conscious mind is the captain, while the subconscious mind is the crew.
Yeah.
And the captain can tell the subconscious mind what to do, but the subconscious mind is always listening. So if the captain is like, you're doing declarations and you're doing rah-rah stuff and everything, but then you get done with that and you're lying and you're not holding yourself to account and you're living in a way that's out of alignment and all this, like the crew is like, fuck this guy, dude. He says he wants us to do this. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So getting those two things in alignment to where like you are, actually in congruence is the way that William says it with those two things, you get on this like super highway of high speed results.
Yeah.
And I really experienced that through that program where I was like, I started off with this exercise where like I had to make a list of 100 material items that I wanted to experience and then 100 of experiences that I wanted to have. And he kind of warned us when we went through this. He said, you're going to get to 30 or 40 and be done because you're going to, at that point, start listening to the dialogue in your head. So it's like I start writing these things out and it's like I get to the point where it's like I want a private plane. And then I'm like, well, why do you need a private plane? Why can't you just fly private? And I'm like, whoa. Why am I deciding that that's an important thing that I would want to like downplay that,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of learnings in that experience. And then, the same thing with the other side where you're like choosing experiences. But when it happens and you're able to kind of shed that sort of lack of worthiness or that ceiling on what you're able to do, shit comes at you in a hurry, dude.
Yeah.
I've shared this experience on this podcast before, and I'll share it again briefly just for you, where I had this thing on my I had on my list of experiences. I wanted to fly private to a major sporting event with my friends and have full access to the whole thing and enjoy the time, right? So I wrote this on my list. Short version is, because everybody's heard it and you probably already heard it too, within 4 days I get a call from our friend Sean saying, hey, you want to fly with me out to Indianapolis? I get full access to the paddock. I'm on race row. Like I have a picture of kissing the bricks in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I'm up on the podium and I'm like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
In my mind, I had created that in the box of like the NBA finals or the Super Bowl or something.
Sure.
Indianapolis Motor Speedway is just as storied as any of that stuff. And I was like, wow, okay. So my learning was I don't get to attach it to having to have a certain thing if I describe what I want and the universe provides it. And it started being like, I realized sometimes exactly what I want looked differently than I thought, but it was exactly what I wanted.
Right.
So that was what came out of all that.
Yeah, 100%. It's just being open to the scenario of whatever's coming.
Well, and there's a part of it too where I was involved in the choice of the scenario.
Sure.
So not just being open, it was like, so I had to choose, like, this is what I want. It's like a pointer. I'm like, I'm pointing at, that's what I want. And then I have to realize, like, well, it might be one of those weird squirrely wiffle balls that finally hit the target.
Yeah.
But it's going to hit that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway. So let's back up a little bit.
Sure.
So you went to Mexico for 3 years, studied with old things.
Yeah.
Did you live like a monk at that time? Were you? I mean, we're talking. I've been to places in South America where there's not a lot of technology. First world is like an afterthought. Like
Sure.
you're in the woods,
Sure.
and I can't imagine if you're doing all the studying that you're like living the 5-star life at this point.
No, a few years before this, I started like traveling, and I went and lived with monks because I wanted to learn their meditation practice.
Why?
Because I
How
wanted
does
to
that?
learn.
I know, but dude, for like, I want to break that part down.
Okay, cool.
Like, I've been around you enough socially and like your friend where I'm like,
Yeah.
how the fuck? Like, I've never had a moment where I'm like, you know what I need to do today, bro? I'm gonna go fucking hang out with some monks. You know
Yeah.
what? Like, that's never been. So I'm like wondering how because you're successful and you're
Sure.
charismatic and accomplished and all that. Like, how does that transition from being just something, a curiosity? Where like, no, I'm gonna do it.
I fell in love with the thought processes of these like secret sciences, this information that the world wasn't giving me.
Okay.
That these old, pillars of society knew something.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go find out
Dude,
what
this
it
sounds like
was.
the first 3 minutes of the movie The Secret.
It pretty much is.
I was found the secret scrolls of the ancients.
It's something like that. But it's this unfolding, because what's really cool is, I told you I grew up Mormon, then I didn't go to church, and then I went back, was serving a bishopric and did these things, right?
Really?
Yeah, I worked in the temples. I did all the things.
How old are you when this was happening?
33? Wow. 30, 33.
Okay.
And I go, okay, cool. Like, I'm here and I'm not resonating with the full message. What else is there for me? And so somebody suggested something about Buddhism. And so I picked up the Dhammapada and I read it. And when I read that book about Krishna, right, the blue Jesus,
The blue
Hindu,
yeah.
he's just blue. He's the Hindu Jesus.
Yeah.
From a different planet. It's a great story too. But when I read that, I actually understood
See,
Christ.
hold on. If that's the case, why does Scientology get such a bad rap, dude? If we got blue Jesus from a different planet, why don't we have like the Thetans? Why can't that be real? Anyway, please continue.
It could. It just happens to be that the Buddhist religion is like what 3,000 to 5,000 years old. Scientology
Yeah,
is
Ron L. Hubbard is like the biggest liar of our century.
yeah,
like basically.
it just happened. So I fell in love with reading these religious texts. Did you ever see the movie Arrival with Amy Adams?
Yeah, I did. That was a great movie.
In that movie where the aliens came down and they all gave a part of the whole, and you had to have the whole in order to understand the message.
Yeah.
So I said, cool, maybe this is what religion is about, is that each one of these major religions holds a pillar, a bit of data, and it's my job or anybody's job to go study, pull, assimilate what's good, get rid of the trash, then go study, pull, assimilate. And so I pretty much studied every major religion on the planet. Like,
So what does that look like,
deeply.
studying them? Like, where do you go? How do you get this information? Where do you see like, oh, I got to read that book? Like, what's the process of like being able to study that? Because I'm sure it's not like you're just going to the library in Alexandria and pulling scrolls and shit.
No, I mean, some of it was going to stay with monks.
Yeah?
Right? It was like, I'm just going to go to the source of what I believe is the source and learn what I can. Studying old texts took
So
a while.
crazy.
Studying old books took a while to find originals, because some of them are thousands and thousands of dollars in order to buy and obtain
Yeah.
to study.
Can you find any of them online? Are they digitized at all?
Not really, not the older versions. Maybe anything after like the late 1800s
Okay.
would be digitized or can be. But so it was that. And so I just kept going, and I'd study something. I'd go like I wanted to study Buddhism. So I just bought the Buddhism books that they said that would, meditated with it. I talked to people with Buddhism. I wanted to learn Hinduism, so I studied who the Hindu gods were. And then I went to a Hindu opening of a temple and went through their celebrations and just experience as much like your 100 list of experiences. Just kept experiencing more and going, okay, cool. I have the ability to decide what's powerful for me and what's not. And any one of these religions has something amazing about it. So I'm just going to keep assimilating. And that process took me to a place where I'm like, I'm pretty successful. I lived here in the US. We share a common love for the Ferrari, California.
We do.
So I'm living in South Jordan, Utah. I have a 15-person Range Rover limousine that threw the best parties in town. The Ferrari, 2 Range Rovers, the car. And I kept going, man, I think there's more. Like, I'm not necessarily happy. I'm kind of stressed out about this. And every time I would try to date a woman or come into a situation, I would hear all the voices tell me who who I need to be. You need to stand a certain way. You need to project a certain thing. You need to have the right watch. You need to have the car, or nobody will love you. And I was like, whoa, that can't be right. So it was kind of this unfolding process. I went into my closet, and I have like 150 T-shirts, 100 T-shirts, something like that, right? Sure. Just you collect them. And I walked in and I started touching them, and I said, what do you remind me of? The physical thing. And if it reminded me of a place or a person, it was gone. And I just started deleting things out of my closet because I wanted to remove the subconscious connection to that person or that thing, right? You walk in and subconsciously you see that, shirt from wherever, that time you fought with that girl or the thing that you did or whatever that was, and you see it and your mind grabs a hold of it. And we only have so much energy to operate every day. And if we continue grabbing to the old, then how do we evolve into the new? So I just started deleting it. And then I went through my house and I'm like, wow, I don't have a thing in here that I picked. This was like, some of it was from a divorce. After a divorce, I hired a fantastic woman to come in and decorate my house. I didn't choose anything. And I started realizing everything. I was like, man, I'm getting rid of it all. And it happened to be at this time, I'm dating this woman from Russia, and she's a legitimate princess from Russia. Not just like a princess.
Anna Karenina. You got this one. Okay.
And she couldn't get into the States. So I traveled with her to like Bali, and we stayed in different places. And I'm going, well, I have this thought. Like, I just want out of everything. I'm going to sell the cars, I'm going to sell the things, and I just want to go nomadic for a little while. And she had said, well, I'll come. And I was like, that sounds fantastic, because I'm kind of scared. Like, I'm going to a foreign country that I don't know the language. And I'm going there because I keep having these thoughts and feelings that I should. Nobody's telling me to do this. So she came down with me, and it was really fantastic because the reason I stayed down there longer, we stayed with each other and traveled for about a month. And at the end of the month, we're like, hey, we're great. Like, we're perfect. There's nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong with me. We're just good.
See ya.
But there was a moment where we're traveling through this little town on this way to this pyramid structure, and there's a military, a Mexican military professional that's standing on the corner. And he looks at me, and he reaches at his gun. And I start to get a little nervous in this moment. And he looks at her, and she smiles at him, and he just smiled, the biggest, brightest smile. And I thought, oh, man, here I am, aviator glasses, lion's not sheep hat, big bushy beard. I look like a drug dealer. He's looking out to protect everybody else. And in that moment, everything shifted because of that experience that I had with her, where she could show me that somebody wasn't out just to try to kill me. And so when we ended, I stayed and just said, okay, I'm gonna continue going through these processes. I'm gonna continue learning. I'm gonna continue. And there was really cool things that happened in between. I happened to be up in Southern California right after I left, maybe like 6 months. A friend of mine says, hey, I'm gonna stop by this woman's house, and I'd like you to come and meet Grandma. And everybody called her Grandma G. And in the Hindu faith and the Hindu tradition, if you have J-I behind your name, it's kind of like guru, right? You're G. And she takes me to this woman's house, and she's next level. In the spiritual communities, with like channeling and things, she's like epic. We talked for a little while, and as I was leaving, she said, hey, son, do you mind if I call you once you leave? Like, can I get your number? I said, sure. So she calls me. I go back to Mexico. I'm there. She calls me up, and she says, well, so you've been trying to learn something for many lifetimes now, and you're right here at the precipice. I'd like to teach you what you're missing. I said, okay. Like, I've been looking for a teacher to teach me something that I couldn't get from a book or couldn't get it. Most of these traditions in the old traditions, they'd only teach it, what was that? It was called lips to ear, only person to person, right? Guru to teacher. It was never written down. And so she said, cool, I want to teach you this, but it comes with a price. I was like, okay, what is that? She goes, well, you're going to make me 3 commitments. And you're going to live these commitments for the next 3 years. And you might live them for the next 12 years because it just depends on you. It's not a specific time. It's your evolution. I was like, okay, what does that mean? She goes, number 1, you can't cut your hair for 3 years. I'm like, cut my hair? She's like, yeah, the hair on the top of your head. You can't cut it for 3 years. I'm like, well, why? And what she told me and what I got out of it were 2 different things. But the first one was that, trees which exhale our oxygen, and we exhale what they breathe. So they're the other half of our lung. They grow their roots in the ground, which connects them to all the other trees, and that's their communication. Well, in almost every religion in old history, they wouldn't cut a child's head or hair until they were like 5 or 6 years old, because they would let it fully mature, which takes 3 years, and it created this sensitivity around them. I'm like, okay, that sounds nice. What I actually really got out of doing that, well, I'll finish this one and then I'll tell you that. So I said, okay, cool, I can do that. And she goes, well, the next one, no drugs, no alcohol, no plant medicine, no aspirin, nothing for 3 years, like nothing. And I had, played in psychedelics quite a bit, going through this process. I'd done all of these things, I've traveled to these places, but I had never really just been sober Greg for years, like with nothing. I knew what it was like to be drunk Greg for 3 years in a row.
Sure.
But not the other. So I said, okay, I'll give that a try. I mean, not a try, I'll do it. And she goes, the final one, no sex of any kind for 3 years. Not with self, not with another person, nothing.
Can't nut for 3 years?
Not for 3 years.
Jesus Christ, no wonder you're so calm.
Oh, dude, let me tell you about it. So I thought about it for a little while, and I came back and I said, okay, I'll do this. And then once a month, I would fly back to Southern California. We'd go through some teachings and some training. She would send me back down to California, and I would practice all of these different things, not just her studies, but other ones. One of my favorite authors, his name is Lujan Mattis, and he teaches like quantum physics level materialization or manifestation.
Okay.
He doesn't use those terms, very analytical, clinical, but just really super high level. And so I hired him to be my coach while I was down there. So there were times where I had an apartment just outside of Tulum that wasn't 5-star. It was in complete poverty. I learned to live in a bedroom the size of this, or a whole apartment the size of this room, which I always was the guy that had to have a bigger house.
Yeah.
And so nothing, very minimalistic. And then other times when I lived with the families, dirt floor, like jungle style.
Sounds like my mission.
Yeah. Where did you go on your mission?
Brazil.
Yeah.
Southern Brazil. Yeah.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have some cities that have some things, and you go out a mile, and it's a completely different ballgame. And you go out 2 miles, and they're shacks with no water, no plumbing.
How long did that take you to adjust to that lifestyle?
It probably took a couple of months. At first, it was exciting. At first, it was nerve-wracking, and then it's exciting. And then it kicks in, and there's no women. I'm growing my hair out, which meant for the first time in my life, I wasn't worried about what I looked like. So I could go wild and crazy and let it grow and do these things where before, I'm clean, I'm cut, I'm proper. And I couldn't recognize my own face in the mirror, which also meant that I could become anybody I wanted. Like the moments that you're confused in life, I don't know who I am, man, those are the best moments in time because you get to create what's next. If you know exactly who you are and exactly what you look like and exactly what this thing is, you can only be that thing.
I've always found that to be a very curious answer when in conversation somebody's like, no, I know exactly who I am. I'm
Yeah.
like, but do you though? Who really does?
Yeah, no.
It's a shifting landscape 100% of the time.
You brought it up when you brought up the Satan conversation, and then we started talking about this frequency of light. Like
Yeah.
the very best thing that I could possibly be, if somebody was to ask me, hey, who are you? I would say, I'm nothing. I'm nothing.
I read a book recently, and they maybe I think it was The Untethered Soul. I was reading that book, and he has that thing where he breaks it down, and he's like, I am the one who sees. Is basically the only real way that you can truly answer that question, like, who are you?
Yeah.
Because everything else is associated with some sort of contextual identity that's not real.
And if you're nothing, it means tomorrow I can be this, A, and then the next day I can be B. I can be light, I can be dark, I can write books, I can be the chief technology officer for Lions Not Sheep, I can launch another NFT project, I can launch a third software, which is just now coming out, which runs Lions Not Sheep Den that we white labeled to give everybody else. I can do all of those at once because I'm not one of them.
Yeah, those are just what you're doing.
It's who I am today. Being.
The conversation of identity is very interesting to me. Going back into that upgrade conversation of the work that I've done there, it's a big one. Like how you see yourself well, there's like this tree. It's like at the bottom of it is your identity. Like how you see yourself then governs your values. And then your values govern your beliefs, and your beliefs then govern your behavior. And so if you actually want to change behavior, you start at the root. Change how you see yourself, and then that will change what your values are. And the value that values are like a non-negotiable thing for a lot of people. Like if you are living outside of your values, you will know it immediately.
Yeah.
You will feel it immediately. And one of two things will change. You will feel a disconnect and a dissonance, like a vibrational dissonance in everything you do, or your values will change.
Yeah.
You'll like morph into this new person. That's what happens with people that, continually do things they know that don't serve them. They become the thing that they're. But going back to that, understanding the power of identity and realizing it's a choice. As I was listening to you talk about that, it makes me wonder if the concept of reincarnation didn't start as an actual like life and death, new lifetime type thing. It started as like epics within a life.
Sure.
It's like I'm reincarnating now into a new person. You're sharing a description of like looking at yourself in the mirror and not recognizing who you are. You're a new guy at that point.
Yeah.
That's new Greg.
Yeah.
It's a new physical manifestation of what you've never seen before. It's a new set of values because you don't give a shit about if you're shaved or not or what's going on with your hair. You're just like, this is me. And that then bleeds into every decision that you make about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, 100%. I lived for a while, like I only wore white t-shirts and I wore like, earth colored shorts or something. And what I learned was that all the color sensations, what like moods, you look at a shirt and you're like, I'm in that mood. I wanted none of it. I just wanted it to be blank for a few years to be able to just then decide what that next piece is. And you brought up something a little while ago. It's a really cool analogy of, the conscious mind is the captain, the subconscious mind is the crew, and bringing them into alignment. And then you brought up the fact that, in order to change anything, you have to find the root. So many people just don't physically understand that the subconscious mind was created. It wasn't given to you. You're not you don't inherit those thoughts. You inherit the unconscious mind, the thing that connects us all. But this one up here is all about lessons and communications and learning how to walk and all of those things. And so, it's bringing them into alignment, but it's also removing anything that's not powerful. And that helps shift things faster and faster and faster. Like when you said you went through your experience and now money and things are just flowing because you're just removing all of this, like, these tethers to the ground, and you're a jet engine that's holding you back, and you're just cutting them and removing them and taking off.
Yeah. The doorway into those experiences and that sort of shift in result and awareness, it's not very glamorous. It's really overly simple, really.
Yeah.
It was like I just had to be like one of the things that was an immediate shift was I started noticing how I used the words easy and hard. Mm-hmm. And instead of predetermining through speech by describing it or declaring it that it would be easy or hard, I stopped doing that. And I started realizing that, okay, so in the past, I have said this is going to be hard based off of effort that I was going to be required to put forth or problem solving or complexity. Yeah. And it's like, well, requiring effort and needing to problem solve and it being complex doesn't mean that it's hard.
Yeah.
It means that it requires complexity and problem solving and effort. Okay,
sure.
Those are three different things. Those are way less intimidating than the word hard.
Sure.
And so I started like really reframing how I would see it. And easy as well. I started using the word easy more. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, this is going to be easy.
Yeah.
This is going to feel effortless.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. It kind of separated the herd in a lot of ways because I found myself on an energy, and I recognize this is something with you too. Like, you find yourself energetically like really vibing with certain people, and others that you might have vibed with in the past. You're like, "Fuck this guy, dude! Like, I am out. I cannot deal with this right now." And it's an energetic thing. It's like two notes on a piano that just go. It's like that that dissonance in your ear. Like, I can't deal.
Yeah,
and that's very real. It's very real. Yeah. People blame it on, well, I just don't like their personality. No, like energetically, you're not vibing.
Yeah, it's interesting because right now we're using the words energy in a different context. 5 years ago, if we would say, "Oh, we're not vibing with your energy," you were weird.
Yeah,
like you were whacked out.
Fucking hippie.
Yeah, like what are you talking about? Energy.
Take another toke, stoner.
Yeah. And now we study like quantum physics and particle physics, And we know that everything in this universe that we can experience or measure is a frequency. It means it's an energy.
Yeah.
And all the things bind together in certain ways. How and why, we don't know yet, but they do. So everything is an energy. So I love this conversation. And also I love that people are starting to wake up or utilize different words like your, hard or easy. Mine was should or get to. I should go to the gym today. And that was a negative, like that's a downer. You should go do this and change that word to get to. I get to go to the gym today. I get to work today.
Same with need.
Same thing. Yep. Yeah. And these small, in the neurolinguistic programming, mapping, these small words it sounds so silly, but those small adjustments can change the trajectory of your life in massive ways. Massive ways.
So different. Truly massive way. There's a piece of this that I think that is worth bringing up, in that in order to even conceptualize or go down this sort of rabbit hole of, the concept of energy and quantum physics and manifestation and how your mind plays into it and everything, you have to be willing to push against like internal doctrine and dogmas that you've created.
Yeah.
I've noticed, because I too, I grew up as a part of that Mexican clan called the El Diaz group. And I didn't step out of line until later in my life. I went on a mission. Hadn't touched alcohol till I was 31. Was a virgin when I got married. I mean, I was textbook.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucked because there was a lot of experiences that I wish I'd have had and that I said no to out of fear. But going forward, I had this experience where, I was actually excommunicated when I got divorced. And apparently they frown on you fucking a new girl when you're still married to your old one, Like
I guess so.
Fucking church, bunch of fuddy-duddies. Anyway, so I got excommunicated, but it was still very important to me. The church was very important. So I still would go to church, and it was like this sort of like shame exercise for me.
Yeah.
I'd go there because I couldn't participate, I couldn't pray, I couldn't teach, I couldn't raise my hand or give comments, but I was there literally as like a shadow. And it was this weird sort of commitment to my own shame that I look back now and realize, what the hell were you doing, dude? That was so not necessary. And then I started to want, enough time had passed and enough things had happened where I felt the desire to get my, as they call it in the Mormon church, your blessings restored, where I could go to the temple again and participate. And that was after my rebaptism. I ended up getting rebaptized. But the rebaptism process was really transformative for me as well, because I started seeing holes in the game. Because, first of all, when I got excommunicated, the stake president, this is an absolute true story, the stake president put his arm around me as I was walking out, having been my membership of the church removed, saying, "We're really glad this happened to you. Men like you don't need to be associated with the church." And I was like, fuck you, dude. Like, I was so annoyed at the arrogance of this fucking guy, right?
Yeah.
And so that led me on this path of like trying to like counterbalance this sort of ideas. Like, well, I still feel like I have a relationship with God. My relationship with his church, I air quoted again, is dog shit. What do I do? And I started thinking about things differently. Anyway, I got to where I wanted to be rebaptized. It was a very tumultuous experience because my ex-wife now had to be involved in the process.
Oh.
And with everything that I had chosen to believe about Christ and the atonement and everything, like this was a gut punch for me. I'm like, really, motherfucker? Like, really? Like, me and JC need to involve this bitch? Like, what? And I ended up getting rebaptized, and it kind of started me on this thing, and I ended up reading this. I got to this point where it was almost time for my blessings to be restored. Like, we're talking 2-3 months away. I read this book called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, book 1, his first one.
Oh, book 1.
Because he's got 5 of them or whatever.
Yeah, there's 7.
Yeah, there's 7 now. I didn't know about the other 2. Because I've read Friendship with God. I've read the first 3 of it. He's a great author and a very interesting human. I'm reading this, and I'm having this description in this book. For anybody that's spiritual in nature or having questions about religion, I absolutely recommend reading that book.
Yeah.
It will change your life in a good way. Like, I'm reading this book and having explanations about God and spirit touch me spiritually just as strong as any temple ceremony had.
Right.
And I was like, okay, what does this mean? Like, I hacked the system. I'm not supposed to feel this way unless I'm in that room. Why? And he really broke down as well this concept between like your sponsoring thought being that when you break everything down to motivation, like the underneath it all, foundational motivation, there's only 2 motivating factors, either fear or love.
Yeah.
And when you realize the source of what that is, it helps you to gauge better your decisions and everything. Well, it was the first time I started looking at the church and being like, what if it's great and it's full of shit? What if it's both? What if it could be a tool for helping people achieve righteousness and community and for achieving self-awareness and creating a relationship with deity while being nonsense? And that dichotomy kind of blew me away. I'm like, is that possible? And I'm reading this book. He's like, it's absolutely possible. I'm like, okay. So I start drinking at that point.
Okay.
I start making some better money at that point. I'm involved in real estate. And I'm being honest with my ecclesiastical leaders about this. And they're like, yeah, we need you in the church. Like, I'm not worried about this stuff. Go. I'm like, all right. So I go get my blessings restored. I go downtown, and it was the most underwhelming experience ever. And the way I bring it up is because that day gave me a new onus on my own accountability that I'd never had.
Yeah.
And I can now spot other people that have that and who don't. What had happened that day is I realized, this is my experience. This is my journey. I'm not a member of some Helaman army of God bullshit. Like, Bryce is the leader of Bryce's army.
Yeah.
Okay. And I started realizing, like, okay, so I adjusted how I would go to church. I'm like, I still feel an emotional pull to church for whatever reason. Cool. So I would go. And then when I would feel the energy of what they're saying shift into fear, I'd bail.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to put up with this. And when it was in love and support and growth, I'm there for the whole thing. So sometimes I would stay the whole 3 hours, and sometimes I'm out with a sacrament hymn, dude. Like, and it changed how I approach and look at the relationship that we have with God. It seems like a lot of people think that God places to them like this little Rubik's Cube to figure out how to have a relationship with God.
Sure.
And to me, I learned, like, no, you have one already.
Yeah.
You just have to talk to him.
Yeah.
And then listen.
Yeah.
And he might show up in ways you don't expect. He might show up in a dirty joke. He might show up in a porn video. Like, he might show up in something you're reading about Hitler. Like, there's all these ways that, like, messages of goodness and light and love can come to you. And I had never allowed myself to think that way.
Yeah. Because you were told not to.
Told not to.
You
But
can't
that's where the
study
power-
anything outside that.
Something that I know, if you were involved in Lions Not Sheep experience from the beginning, like, the whole idea of embracing your dark, people are so scared of it, and that's where all the truth is.
Yeah. It's still you.
Still you.
Yeah, 100%. This is going to be interesting. So when you went through the church pieces, do you know how the books of the Old Testament and then the Book of Mormon and things got decided? What was in there?
I've from what I've been told, I haven't studied with monks in Mexico or anything, but my understanding is, like, in 200 years AD, there was like a big conference, and it was in Rome, and
384.
384, and it was like Nicaea.
The Nicene Creed.
Yeah, and they chose.
Yeah.
And it was completely political.
Yeah.
Like, well, we can't have this one. It's showing Jesus too much like this. We got to get that out of here. Oh, this is a woman. Fuck out of here with the bitches. Like, it was completely political how they chose it.
100%. So Emperor Constantine at the time was a pagan, and Rome and all of this was falling. Like, he knew his civilization was done. So he's looking around and he's like, oh man, these Christians over here, these people that believe in this Jesus guy, 300 years after he died, they're really passionate. Like, they're crazy motherfuckers. They're passionate.
Yeah.
I want to tap them. So he contacted all the cardinals in all of the regions that taught this, over or back east and in Europe. He said, hey, I want everybody to come here, and we're going to create one religion out of this. So he said, great. 50% of all the cardinals show up. They go through this, and mind you, Jesus has a ton of apostles, not just 4. I think it was 21 that hung out with him. And some of them, like you said, were women, and they have their own books, right? Yeah. So they took a look at it, and they said, or he said, okay, everybody, we're going to get in the room for the next 2 months. We're going to create this religion. So they do. And on the very last day, they say, okay, we're about ready to leave the congregation or room or whatever it is. What I want you to do is I want you to leave the books that you believe that should make it into, which is now called the Holy Bible, on the top of your desk. And then leave. And we'll count. Sounds like mail-in ballot stuff to me.
No shit, right?
We'll count.
There's 81 million votes for Jesus.
We'll count them up, and then we'll decide. So the next day they came back, and all of a sudden, almost all of the people voted on these 4 books. Well, people started freaking out. The cardinals are like, no. Like, you can't do this. I didn't vote for this. And so they said, okay, cool. Everybody that's in stays, and everybody that's out is out. And he excommunicated 50% of the entire, Christianity or Catholicism at that point, and created these books. And they said, okay, cool. They ran it for about 50 years. Rome is still falling, and they changed it again. And then at that moment, they made it illegal for 1,000 years, 1,000 years, to own any religious text or have a picture of Jesus or any representation. The only way that you could know God is to go to the pastor.
Well, that's why the books were in Latin, right? And nobody spoke Latin at that point or read it unless you were highly educated.
Yeah. Imagine, we see what's happening right now with like the definitions of a recession, right? Where one word is changing and it's freaking communities out.
Yeah.
What if we had 1,000 years to teach people what we wanted them to teach them? And that's where this came from.
Well, that's one of the good things that I take from my, experiences in the church is that I remember them talking about the importance of keeping a written record, that it preserves the language.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me. And it solidified being stuck with me the first time I had Snoop Dogg talk. I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, we're going to have to listen to this guy in 100 years. Like, Fascism Mondays, what does that mean? Oh, and then when you read Shakespeare and it's like the beautiful prose of, English language and how he would write it. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Like the whole concept of forced dogma is curious to me because, you get into, there's a lot of interesting books and, about the Knights Templar and about the idea of Mary Magdalene being, the Da Vinci, the movie The Da Vinci Code is about this, but there's a bunch of really great books that have been around for a long time, even before Dan Brown used those things to write the Da Vinci Code, talking about, Mary Magdalene being Jesus's wife, having a child. And there was the bloodline is legitimate, that there's an actual existing familial DNA bloodline back from Jesus Christ. And that's the type of stuff that really is interesting to me because I can buy into that.
Sure.
I can buy into the fact that this charismatic leader that had this following that was self-proclaimed as the Son of God, that he might have, a little side piece that keeps him thinking straight,
Yeah.
And that might have made a baby or two now and then,
Yeah. All it really takes is to pick up any of the Gnostic gospel books. These were books that the ones that didn't make it inside the Nicene Creed were all destroyed until something like 1975. Somebody finds all of these books in a cave, right? All of the apostle books. And Mary Magdalene has her own book.
Yep.
And when you study her, this is so funny. So
Did you study her stuff?
I did.
Okay.
Because I learned when I was growing up that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. Jesus hung out with prostitutes, right? So I wanted to know where that came from.
She wasn't any of that, was she?
No.
She was just a lovely woman.
In 700 AD, a pope gets pissed off that people keep talking about this Mary Magdalene, and he's like, she's nothing but a prostitute. And it sticks. 300 years later, the church issues a written apology that they didn't mean that, but we still have that now. Yeah. This woman was rich. She was well-read, well-studied.
I bet she was hot.
Oh, I'm sure.
Jesus ain't going to run up with some ugly girl.
No.
Son of God, you kidding me?
Yeah, so her books are there. The Gospel of Thomas, he was Jesus' best buddy. That one's one of the better ones to read.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you learn by reading Mary Magdalene's stuff?
What I learned from all of this, and even studies, I went and stayed in Venice, Italy to study the sculptures and the history of this. And what I learned was the easiest way to manage a population is to take the feminine out of it and tell them that they're worthless, right? Because the women have always had more priesthood and more connection and divinity to God than the men. You go to the Egyptians, you go Syrians, the women were the priests, right? But if I wanted to control that narrative, I would tell them they're worth less and tell the husbands that they're worth less and you need to beat them or you need to rape them or you need to do all the things that they were teaching people to do. And you could keep a population from growing, from overturning. And now, if I'm the only guy with the word of God and you have to come to me and, by the way, you need to give me 10%.
Oh, that's corruptible to say the least.
100%. Yeah. It's horrible. So I really learned by reading these books that all of that belief was true.
Okay.
That feminine, it's super interesting because there's not a feminine and masculine is like good and evil, right? It's just an energy on the same path. Yep. I can operate out of my feminine just as easy as I can operate out of my masculine. It took me a lot of years to figure out how to do that. And some women operate out of their masculine and feminine. This isn't a feminist conversation. This is just that if you just tell people to be a Neanderthal, I can control your lower cortex minds. Like I can control your croc brain. I can control your lower chakra systems. I can teach you sex. I can teach you addiction to porn. I can teach you. And when you're there, I can control you.
That makes so much sense if you really like think about it. The power of the feminine over the masculine. Like when you think about, let's shift into a different lane for a second, but yet kind of keep our mitts in this one as well. When you look at the psychology between the sexes in relationship and the power dynamic and the importance of sex, and the man traditionally being the one that pursues sex more and the woman being the one that has to discern, and then being, the mother figure and the caretaker and the nurturer, and then you have the hunter and you have the gatherer. Like women, I've kind of been railing on this a lot. Women have way more power than they know.
For sure.
They're not willing to acknowledge it. They try, like, there seems to be this sort of overall sentiment that like women are oppressed and they have like this victim thing about it. I'm like, show me where. You might have to deal with some shit that nobody else has to deal with, but come on, ladies. Come on, dude. If you guys would stop being bitches to each other, you could rule the world. That's the one place where men have a leg up. Is like we can be logical and be like, I'm not vibing with you now, dude, but we're good.
Yeah.
Where women, they have a hard time with that one.
Yeah. The most powerful women I currently know aren't, and these are business leaders, like women that are changing the face of the world doing things. Traditionally, we say if you need to get something done, you need to operate out of your masculine. You need to be strong, you need to be powerful. But in those scenarios of these like really like magnetic women, they have a very masculine like a husband or somebody in their life that is like masculine is like the container. It's like, I got your back. You go be the ocean. You go take care of these things. But they're not operating out of their masculine. They're operating out of their feminine, and they're changing the scape of things. And so we stop this fight between masculine and feminine, who's better, who's not, because it's not either one. It's just what's more powerful for you to operate out of. And if they operate out of the feminine and they're like a really feminine woman, they all of a sudden stop steamrolling their husbands, because some women have the ability to just pile drive over their husbands and push them down and push them down and push them down. They're like, you're weak. And maybe they had to do that out of necessity, maybe not. But in that scenario, that's a masculine creation. And these other ones that are coming out right now, oh my gosh.
Well, dude, what I'm hearing from you as you say that is that it's a true yin and yang. Like it's a true container. Yeah. And that for a woman to like really be able to embrace and live in her feminine, she has to be anchored by masculine.
Yeah.
That there has to be a support of the masculine, because the feminine is fiery and chaotic and unpredictable, and the masculine is rooted and it's sound and it's more predictable, it's calm. And the combination of those two things is beautiful.
Yeah.
And when you look at what's happening in our culture, and not to put my tinfoil hat on by any means, but it seems that there is a lot of like really deliberate sort of intention towards minimizing the masculine and unnecessarily minimizing the feminine as well. And like this weird sort of swap. It's like they want dudes to be less dude and they want women to be less women. And that sort of imbalance and chaos just fucks everything up.
Yeah.
It causes relationships to be out of whack. It causes businesses to be out of whack. It causes people to not know who they are, their identity. It causes the trek to alignment, the decision to get clear, to become more convoluted because you're believing in things that aren't real.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I love one of the music channels I listen to on Pandora. I call it political rap, right? Tom Holland. And there's a song in here that he talks about, the system. About if I can create a system that says that there's always two choices, there's always going to be a division between those two choices. You're red, you're blue. Go back to the Matrix, and he said red or blue pill. Well, if I'm Neo and I'm an actual programmer, I'm like, bro, I'm not choosing either one of your pills, because the moment that I choose which you offer me, you control me. So if you're Republican or Democrat, the system controls you by choice. If you're masculine and feminine, the system controls you by force. If you're conservative or liberal, whatever it is, it's control, because every time you create a choice with polarity and then tell the other people that that other choice is bad or wrong, you create situational division
Okay.
that now is controllable.
Okay. That hints at something we don't ever talk about, which is the one who holds the power in that scenario is the one offering the choice.
Yeah.
So who's off? So look around analytically, objectively, ask yourself who's offering me this choice when it comes to decisions you could choose relative to policy, to politics, to relationship, to money, to whatever. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Imagine the assumption that just happened where, we had COVID and you have to wear masks. And then they came back and they said, oh, now you don't have to. The government's giving you the right not to wear a mask or not to get a vaccine or not. And what they did in that moment is they told you that they gave you your choice. And you're like, thank you. You're like, motherfucker, you never had that option to give that in me in the first place.
Beginning. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no. So this is the awakened state, right? It's not either choice. It's like, whoa, well, who's the programmer in this? And is either one of those choices right for me? And if it's not, I'm just going to back out until I understand it. And then I can make, choices and decisions about what's right for me.
Do you think in our lifetimes we'll ever know the full truth of all this? Because there's got to be a point, we're inching towards it. We're getting more and more aware of how things work.
Well, I think that's why things are getting harder and harder outside, because if you look at polarity on a magnet on both sides, the harder you push, the more they repel. And so the more light, the more understanding, the more the people that don't want that to happen because of they're in control and they're scared about something. If you've ever read Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, they talk about how socialism and parts of communism believe that the only thing that there is in this life is owned property. And if you work for me, I own you because I own all of your hours. And so they're creating this. So they created these workforces and they've been managing these government systems for thousands of years. And the more we wake up and the more we say, no, I'm not choosing either one, the harder it is. So whenever we start to get a little bit farther away from the narrative of whomever wants to be in control they freak out and they have to push harder, which pushes us farther apart, creates more light. Just like the good and the evil, the more bright God shines, the more dark Satan has to shine, because there's just no possibility other than the spectrum.
Yeah.
So I do think there'll be something at some point, and I think it'll be in our lifetime.
I think so too.
I just don't know that if it's going to be really violent or one morning we just all wake up and go, whoa, were we asleep for the last 30 years?
Well, dude, as a Mormon, they have that concept of crossing through the veil, you know, just that your awareness changed.
Yeah.
I think that's probably what it could be. I remember in the book A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart Tolle. Sorry, that's my fire Eckhart Tolle impression. Anyway, so he has this part of the book. He talks about Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
That we evolved, that the second coming of Christ isn't actually him floating down the sky. It's this moment where we understand what he was about and we embody it ourselves, and the collective sort of energy of that raises humanity.
Yeah.
And just now I'm thinking about how in, Conversations with God books, I want to say it was the third one, he talks about, a society of highly evolved beings. He calls them Hebs.
Awaken the Species was the title of that.
It
Conversations with God, Awaken the Species.
Okay. Yeah, he talks about so what is the behavior of these evolved beings, you know? And it was kind of froofy for me to believe, because it stretched my awareness of what was possible, because it really did seem like some sort of weird utopian, John Lennon's Imagine type thing. There's no religion, there's no money, it's everything. I'm like, fuck out of here, dude.
Yeah.
But the idea of evolving to a certain point where we don't need things like competition.
Yeah.
Or we don't have a need for,
thievery, theft.
Right.
Murder in order to get your
anger.
Yeah.
Or all these base level sort of emotions. The evolution of our energy takes us out of those things like loneliness and sad, and not that we don't experience polarity in our emotions, it's just at a different level. You know, it's we can have extreme happiness or just I'm kind of happy.
Sure.
Instead of being I'm all right now or I'm in the doldrums,
Oh yeah.
I like that idea. I think that to me seems more real as far as us having some sort of true gotcha, I get it moment than some robed dude I think, dude, is he coming? Oh,
Yeah.
that's sweet.
There's angels behind him out of the clouds.
Is that
Oh, wait, he's on a spaceship.
Is that a
Shit.
Louis? Is that a Louis robe? Since you're hanging out with Virgil Abloh, is that what's going on?
So I have a question for you, because
Okay.
what you were talking about just now it brought this up. Do you remember a time, or do you remember the time where it was just extremes? Extreme anger, extreme happiness, extreme love, total loathing.
myself or
yeah,
for-
for yourself,
Okay.
for you. Do you remember going through that process?
Yeah, I think it was on my mission. As a missionary, specifically like an LDS missionary, it's a unique experience like unto anything anybody else could experience. You are a part of this system. You have leadership. There's like a mid-level leader, and then there's the mission president, and that mission president reports to the church leadership, and there's a directive, and there's rules, and there's an objective, and there's required behaviors, and there's all these very rigid sort of things that you're supposed to do, while at the same time being in the prime of, like, I was 19, 20 years old at the time, still developing my own understanding of who I am, meeting these people, being as they said, a representative of Jesus Christ, while at the same time feeling like a total fraud.
Yeah.
Because I'm out there because I did have a belief in like the perfection of Christ and the perfection of his message, and that I was out there representing him, and I felt completely underwhelmed, or overwhelmed. Like, I can't represent this dude. He's the man. And so it became, there was these times where like I would have these like sort of flash feelings of like extreme anger, extreme sadness, and it felt like uncontrollable.
Yeah.
It was odd. And I think I didn't experience them at that sort of intensity until when I got divorced.
Yeah.
I remember having this moment, because I think part of what brings those on is just when you get outside of the comfort of knowing what's next. Mm-hmm. It's like when you, people do things all the time to sabotage their own behaviors, right? And they know that it's not good, but it's comfortable. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean comfortable in that it feels good. I mean, it's comfortable. It's predictable.
They know it.
They know the playbook. Like, oh, they're going to run the sweep here. I know what we're doing. It's going to suck and it's going to fucking hurt, but at least I know what's coming.
Yeah.
And there's comfort in that, knowing what's coming. When you find yourself in situations where you don't know what's coming, and then you feel like it's really hard. Like my experience has been it's very difficult. I remember this one time, so the idea, when I got divorced, I had 2 daughters. One was barely born, and the other one was barely 2. And our divorce, my ex-wife and I, we didn't handle things well. And so it was very adversarial, very mean, vindictive. There was a lot of just destruction going back and forth. And I wasn't ready for it. Mm-hmm. I know that I had hurt this woman, but I didn't ever think I would get that sort of wrath back. Like, it blew my mind that was going to be my experience. That was my experience. I remember I used to I was a mortgage broker at the time, and I had an office that was on 40th South and 7th East, and I was driving home, and I was sitting at the light on 4500 South and State Street. I've never had an experience like this before, and I hope I never have it like this again. It was like this wave that kind of came over. I'm sitting there, and I'm thinking about everything, and this wave comes over me of the most debilitating sadness that I've ever experienced. Like, it was like this dream of this life that I had. Not only was it crushed, I felt like it was never possible, and that I had been lied to, and that I am being faced now with this extreme amount of dishonesty from the church, from my soon-to-be ex-wife, from myself, from all these, my family, painting this picture that this is always going to be this way. And if it didn't end up that way, well, at least it could be this way. And the whole thing, it got destroyed, crushed in front of me, and I didn't know how to handle it. It was the first time where it was I can still say I've never had a moment that sad in my entire life. And it was, I can't explain why. I don't know what triggered it into that moment. I don't know why it was. But the surrounding evidence for me was that my dream had died.
Yeah.
And it was I had yet to emotionally mourn the death of the dream.
Yeah.
And it just kind of came on me. I think a lot of people have that more than we think.
Yeah.
And I would love I would love to experience the other side of that.
Sure.
That like my dream comes true, and it's like this overwhelming joy and light, and just yes. Because one of the things I've learned about emotional intelligence and emotional maturity is that it's a spectrum. The depth to which you can feel sadness can be equaled on the other side to the depth to which you can feel joy.
Sure.
And so I know it's out there that I can feel that good. I just got to get there.
For sure. And part of the reason that I ask is right now we see this almost division of humanity. We have this human that is operating out of the lower chakras, the lower feelings, which you had expressed you did going through your divorce.
Yeah.
And then you have the other side that's like, you know what? I'm not living at this spectrum. I'm not going from ultra to ultra. I'm going to live right here. And right here is perfection. Right here is happiness. Right here is, I'm in love with the moment the person that I am right now and the experience that I'm having right now. And I'm watching this division, and it's creating like classes of humans. Like one is evolving and one is not. One is staying angry and staying in this, rooted problem. You did this to me, victim mentality, all of that. And then the other one is going, oh, okay, cool. I'm coming out of that, or I am out of that scenario. And when you get out, the lower things that used to trigger you don't anymore. They almost stop existing. It's just like, wow, you must be having a hard, somebody's yelling at you and you're like, whoa, you're having a bad day. Where prior to that, somebody's yelling at you, you're triggered and you're yelling back because you're just like, why is this about me? This is about you. Instead of going, whoa, man, I feel you. Like, you must
Dude,
have had a bad
it's
day.
reminding me, like, so thinking about your journey and what you learned and studied, it's like, I remember when I first, and this isn't even remotely close, obviously, to what you went through, but like, I remember when I first read the 4 Agreements. Mm-hmm. I'm like, dude, this book is so simple and powerful. Mm-hmm. Like the idea of not taking anything personal, which is what you had just described. It's like somebody's mad at me, like, wow, you must be really bothered. Like, I'm just a shield here. I mean, you're not affecting me, even though they're directing it towards me or projecting it onto me. I don't have to buy in,
Yeah.
I wonder how old that truth is.
Probably as long as humans have been here. And we don't even know when that is.
Who was the first one? Like, who was the first one? Was like, you know what? I don't have to buy into your delusion right now. You can be pissed all you want. I'm going to be easy peasy, baby.
Yeah, I'm just going to sit over here and hang out with Snoop Dogg.
I want to meet that guy. I want to meet the first dude who's like, you know what? I'm just going to keep my word. I'm going to always do my best. I'm not going to take things personal, and I'm not going to make assumptions.
Yeah.
And everyone's around like, whoa, bro, dude, gnarly, man. This guy's a gangster, bro.
Yeah.
And he's just like the most calm dude ever.
Yeah. He's just like, I'm just tired of being sick like you guys. Self-inflicted.
Yeah. He's like, I'm tired of pulling your train, you fucking slackers. It's been fun, dude. We have a fun segment that we do called Current Events where we just talk shit on stuff that's going on in things. So I figure if we can wrap this up with some current events if you're down.
Sure, totally down.
What you got, B?
So the Finnish Prime Minister has been catching a bunch of backlash for posting pictures of her clubbing out in Finland. And she said, I took a drug test, so I do this drug-free. So you can be mad at me all you want, but I don't do drugs while I party. So she's taking a backlash stance on everybody freaking out that she's 36 years old out there clubbing as the Prime Minister
Okay, so let's read it. So 36-year-old female Finnish woman who just so happens to be Prime Minister is out clubbing drug-free, and people are bent.
Yes, and she says, I have the drug test to prove it.
Have you ever clubbed in Finland?
I have not clubbed in Finland.
I wonder what that's like.
I don't know, but I just had this conversation with somebody that went to, what is it called? It's like Wonderlust, Wonderland. It's
Burning Man?
No, it's a music festival that is in Europe that has, it's not quite in Finland, but it's like Glastonbury type scenarios.
Okay.
And this guy was telling me how there was dozens and dozens of 70-year-old women in little outfits raving. Drug-free.
Fucking
raving.
grandma, dude.
And
love it.
It was normal for that scenario. It was normal for them to just, here we're like, oh, you're 30 and you need to stop doing stuff. You're 40 and you need to stop going to club. You're 50 and you can't go, to the gym anymore. We create these.
Right, these rules that aren't air quoted.
So having a 36-year-old woman at a nightclub?
Yeah.
I mean,
dude,
Prime Minister,
I'm
way for living
I'm more
life.
thinking, who's the fucking idiot that had to write that stupid article? Who's like, I can't believe our prime minister is out clubbing. She's having fun. And dude, the political the political sort of rules are so funny to me.
Yeah.
Like we have to do things that respect the office. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah. I did. I had a
She
good
didn't have
time.
her tits hanging out, I don't think. Like, we don't hear that she was freaking dry humping some dude in the bathroom. Like, and even if she was, you got to get policy changes done somehow, bro. You know, you use what you God gave you.
For sure.
That's funny to me that like they would have an issue with that. I mean, if I was to see, you know, Biden at a rave like that'd be, I'd be like, maybe.
Yeah. I'd be just worried about him dying.
Yeah. Trump at a rave though, dude. That's
Little shuffle.
that little. He's got no rhythm.
But it could be fun.
He's like, "Hey, Finnish Prime Minister, get
could
over
be
here.
fun.
You're my age. You're just about the right age I like."
And then somebody would write a news article about, you know, how this rave was put on by music that was created in China because of the technology behind of
Right.
the discs, you know, the DJ booth. And it wasn't the DJ, it wasn't the music, but it was about this. And now he's
And the proceeds all go to Ukraine, and so it's like a
and then they just make stuff up. Like,
somehow Imagine Dragons is there. I don't know what the fucking connection is for everything,
man,
but
the things they make up right now just blow my mind.
it does. And the people that believe it, like I jokingly bring up Imagine Dragons. I went to their concert. That was
Okay.
it was one of the best concerts I've ever been to. That
wow.
guy Dan Reynolds can put on a show.
Yeah.
But you can tell he's kind of a cuck because like he had this whole thing at the end about Ukraine and everything, and I'm like, bro, really,
paid you for
but
that.
really though, you know. And he had a thing about being vaccinated and everything, and then he had a whole thing
wow.
about the pride flag and everything. And I'm like, dude, you're just hitting all the talking points, bro.
Wow.
Like you got to be.
I thought he was more awake than that. Maybe he's woke, not awake.
Yeah, well, I don't even know because he's clearly a man of high passion. He's extremely creative. He is a showman like few are. Put on a great show. But there was some of that stuff where it's like, dude, this isn't 10 years ago. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, just full disclosure, I've had a real tough time with like Pride Month. Not because I don't agree that individuals that are gay, lesbian, queer, whatever, all of the, you know, LGBT, how many are there? LGBTQI plus, that they don't deserve, you know, the same rights as everybody else, but they got them. So
Yeah, deserve was the word.
yeah,
If you believe you deserve something, you believe you don't have it.
that's fair. Yeah. Well, and it's like I've talked to, I jokingly call them like old gays, like Stonewall gays that were like a part of the original thing where they were truly dealing with oppression and, you know, being killed off stuff. And he's like, this new crop is a bunch of sissies, man. Like they act like they're oppressed. They have more privilege than most other people. And like I look at this and I go, you get a month?
Yeah.
You get a month. Well, all right.
Dead soldiers get a day.
They get a day. America gets a day. The fucking country gets a day.
Yeah.
And Pride's a month.
Yeah.
Okay, we're doing this now?
Yeah, it's interesting that the philosophy that's being pushed says something like, you need to believe what I believe to make me feel good. Right?
Oh, dude, I've
Very
talked about this
twisted.
a lot. Yes. It's psychologically impossible.
Yeah.
Like the idea, and I've spoken about this a lot on this show, like the idea that you need to change your behavior to affect my offense, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Because, okay, so you're going to change your behavior so that I am not offended, but what if he has a different sensibility for what offends him and you didn't change your behavior enough to change? It's like, well, fucking nobody wins.
Yeah.
Unless you take it internal and you're like, how about I control my offense?
Yep. You got it.
Sorry to bust the bubble, folks.
Yep.
Own your feelings. All right.
Yep. It's all inside.
All right. What else you got, B?
So, do you guys know Brewer Stadium, where the Milwaukee Brewers play? In the center field, they have the slide.
Yeah.
Well, this LA Dodgers sideline reporter decided to go down it, and I'll just play the video if it plays. Oh, come on, Twitter. All right. So he's going to go down this slide and take a little crash at the end.
Okay. That looks fun, actually.
It does look a little fun. Oh.
Ow.
Okay.
Broke his arm and fractured 6 ribs.
Whoa.
Dude,
just
he-
that.
Just that.
He just needs to
Wow.
drink some more milk, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me guess, he's a vegetarian.
I don't know. He works for LA.
He's from LA. He's an LA sideline reporter, so he's got his kale on point and his avocado toast, and he needs some protein. He needs a steak is what he needs.
Yeah. Okay. So he broke some ribs.
Yeah.
And then
back to it. He just got cast up and it was back there, and all the players are making fun of him. He says "oh crap" when he slams into the wall, and the Brewers did like a painting or like a tape drawing of him saying "oh crap" and his image sliding into the wall. So all the players are making fun of him for it.
Awesome.
Dude, you got to put a little clip of that in the show.
Absolutely.
Dude, that's hilarious, man.
Yeah, I don't know how I think about that. I mean, did he really? Do we have the X-rays? Maybe he made it up because he wants to sue somebody.
Dude, he is from L.A. Those guys are sue happy because I live in full stereotype of all the time. There's a monolith of who everybody is in LA. Everybody's exactly the same. There's no difference in anything, you know?
It's like Utah.
It's like
Everybody
Utah.
in Utah are Mormons.
Yep, we all drink swig and
Oh, yeah.
deal with adult onset diabetes. It's awesome.
The soda phenomenon is wild to me.
It's predictable if you think about it, though. It's just booze.
Yeah.
It's Mormon booze.
Yeah.
So is the crumble thing.
The cookie crumble. Yeah.
Well,
the crumble cookies.
Yeah, it's just that's their crack. It's fantastic to me because it's one of those things. Like, as somebody that has kind of been through that whole process with the church and really had to analyze my beliefs about that.
Yeah.
I laugh that like some 400-pound fuck can give me advice about coffee and booze.
Sure.
I'm like, bro, what are you doing, man?
You know, I have a really good friend that he owns several crumble cookies in Washington State.
Okay.
And during COVID, they shut everything down except there were bakeries, but he's not a bakery. It was just like a drive-up food guy.
Yeah.
And he was inundated. He'd have to run 24-hour crews, like, just to keep up with his stuff. And now they're not closed down anymore, but each of his crumble cookies, each one nets him, like after expenses, lights, employees, about $100,000 a month for a crumble cookie.
Bless him, dude.
He's cracking sugar. He's a drug dealer of sugar.
Every time he goes to talk about his places, he has to look behind his shoulders.
Hey, by the
Yeah,
way.
I got what you need, man.
Yeah. It's really crazy.
You need some of that processed sugar? I got you.
Yeah. Just eat one of those things.
Dude, they're so good, dude. They're so bad for you, though.
I read some article the other day that was talking about like 7 main ingredients that are almost in all of their cookies, and they're all outlawed in other countries except the United States. So I just went off the crumble. I'm like, I'm just not going to put that pesticide in my body from a cookie
That's fair.
because it wasn't good for me in the first place, but I loved it. Like it's like biting into a hot Krispy Kreme donut. It's like butter.
Yeah. Yeah, and you immediately feel like a shitty person.
There's some self-shaming going on in there.
It's like nothing tastes as good as looking whatever. Anyway, I won't go there. What else you got, man?
Yeah, you spoke of crack. So Lamar Odom
Oh no.
got an $80,000 procedure done to get veneers all done in his mouth to clean up his mouth now that he's becoming cleaner.
Was the teeth issue because of crack? Smoking.
Well, probably various reasons, but his gums here don't look all healthy.
He's a fascinating guy to me.
Yeah, I don't even know who he is.
He was a Laker for a while, and he has. Do they have a baby with Kardashians? One of the
I think so.
Khloe.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, and he had like this, like, horrible drug problem that put him in rehab, and it got him. He did some dumb things with it, but he always seemed like a sweet guy.
Yeah.
And it just seems like he got mixed up with the wrong ladies. Joe Rogan has that bit where he talks about how the Kardashians will just rob you of everything, and that's what made Bruce Jenner become Caitlyn Jenner. Because the demons of the Kardashians whispered into his ears, and then while he slept. Bruce. Anyway.
You know, living out of the country where I didn't have television, I didn't watch sports, I didn't follow. Like, I lost the connection to those things that I used to hold dear,
didn't
like
lose much.
football or whatever. I just was like, I don't even know who these people are anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep up with them.
A lot of times it doesn't matter.
No.
It's just purely entertainment.
Yeah.
But
Beautiful.
right on, man. Well, dude, I really appreciate you taking time to come and hang out. And
Yeah, this has been fun.
chat it up, dude.
I don't know. We've been in like 1,000 different directions today, but
That's
it's
the
been
point,
fun.
man.
Yeah.
I've been saying this, like, I say this humbly, like, I want to pattern this show after what Joe Rogan does.
Yeah.
I'm a comedian, so I can have comics on and we can tell all the dick jokes and rib each other and be silly and nonsensical, or we can have good conversations with highly intelligent people that have cool experiences, and it can be in the same week we do those things.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on.
of course, dude, open invite to come back whenever you want, man.
Done.
So,
Done.
Greg W. Anderson is my dude. Where do people find you if they wanted to be associated with what you're doing?
I mean, the easiest one are social medias, which is going to be like an Instagram, Greg W. Anderson.
Okay.
No dots, no misspelling of the name. And I say this because at least at this moment, I have at least 40 fake accounts, and it's been happening for years.
Dude, I'm so jealous. I have 0 fake accounts. Never had one issue with that, man.
It's coming now that you say it.
Well-
You're going to track that right in.
I doubt it, dude. Like, I don't know. I guess I'm Teflon with that. It just they're like, we don't need to.
I get messages from
Nobody would
friends.
believe this guy's into crypto.
3 or 4 times a day, I get a message from a friend going, like a text saying, "Hey, am I on the other line with you right now?" Okay, no. Like, I have one account. So just that. And if I message you from a different account, it's not me because I'm not going to message you anyway.
Right.
So Greg W. Anderson, same thing as on Facebook, which is probably the easiest ways to connect. You know, we're doing so many different things with Lions Not Sheep NFTs, and then Jadari is the new software platform. And I don't go outside of those mediums at the moment, unless it's one of our own products, just because, man, it takes a lot of time to stay up on everything.
Love that. Busy man doing the Lord's work, Greg.
Yeah, I think I am.
Yeah.
I think I am.
I think those Lions Not Sheep NFTs, those are the Lord's work, man.
We're literally creating blessings by creating money and giving it back to people.
Yeah, I've taken my claims. Like, it's great. Freaking love it, man.
Yeah, it's cool.
Anyway, we'll have to talk about that next time.
Done.
Anyway,
Okay.
everybody, thanks for watching and listening to Stand Up. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it. Subscribe to the channel. Keep the conversation going. Let's have this be something that we get out there more in the ethos. And we'll see you next time.